Hi.
Hello.
We're in Ray's book, In Search of Christian Freedom. The chapter is The Challenge of Christian Freedom, and the subtitle here is Fear of Freedom on page 623. He begins with a quotation from the Jerusalem Bible of 1 John 4:18. To fear is to expect punishment, and anyone who is afraid is still imperfect in love. Ray says, Christian freedom, as has been noted, is not simply a negative freedom, the freedom not to believe, not to do, but primarily a positive freedom, the freedom to believe, to do, to be. Though it may seem strange, many find such positive freedom, or just the prospect of it, frightening. For that freedom means taking on responsibility, to come to conclusions based on understanding and convictions personally arrived at in one's own mind and heart, not in someone else's mind and heart, or founded on others' interpretations and reasonings. The responsibility to make personal choices and decisions and to accept their consequences.
For that precise reason, a very large part of humanity seeks to escape from freedom. The means of escape all too often is by submission to a source that assumes authority to make decisions for the person, be his conscience, direct him in his life choices. Were it not for this willingness to exchange freedom for such submission, the totalitarian forms of government that emerged after World War I could never have gained the power they did. Of those forces and the incredible attraction they exerted on the masses, German-born sociologist Erich Fromm writes, quote, "The essence of these new systems, which effectively took control of man's entire social and personal life, was the submission of all but a handful of men to an authority over which they had no control. Millions were as eager to surrender their freedom as their fathers were to fight for it." And that's a direct quote from Erich Fromm's Escape from Freedom, page 18.
Showing how pervasive this human tendency is and an underlying reason for it, psychiatrist Dr. M. Scott Peck states, quote, "Whenever we seek to avoid the responsibility of our own behavior, we do so by attempting to give that responsibility to some other individual or organization or entity. But this means we then give away our power to that entity, be it fate or society, or the government, or the corporation, or our boss. In attempting to avoid the pain of responsibility, millions and even billions daily attempt to escape from freedom." And that was from the book called The Road Less Traveled.
In religion, as in other fields, many find it easier to let others think for them, choose for them, make their decisions for them. They doubtless would not be so willing to do this in material matters, but will do it in spiritual and ethical matters. Their faith is a borrowed faith. They believe largely because others have believed, and they accept their confident claims of being right. They seek security and belonging through organizational membership. They seek refuge from moral problems through submission to a system which offers to take on the responsibility of directing their lives for them, deciding matters of conscience for them. The apostle addressed persons in Galatia as "you who want to be subject to law." That's Galatians 4:21. Similarly today, many want to have things spelled out for them, laid out for them in the form of rules, so that they can feel free of the responsibility of decision. In the words of the writer of Hebrews, they simply have not grown up as Christians. That's Hebrews 5:12-14 if you want to check it.
One of the basic truths of life is that life itself is difficult. In many respects, this is because confronting problems and working for their solution is a painful process. No one's life is free from problems, and the pain they cause emotionally may surpass physical pain. The tendency is to attempt to avoid the pain by ignoring the problems, refusing to confront them, or seeking escape from them by whatever means we can. Persons experienced in mental health care recognize that this is not only common, but even harmful. As the source last quoted expressed it, that was The Road Less Traveled, he continues, the tendency to avoid problems and the emotional suffering inherent in them is the primary basis of all human mental illness. Some of us will go to quite extraordinary lengths to avoid our problems and the suffering they cause, proceeding far afield from all that is clearly good and sensible in order to try to find an easy way out, building the most elaborate fantasies in which to live, sometimes to the total exclusion of reality. In the succinctly elegant words of Carl Jung, neurosis is always a substitute for legitimate suffering. End of quote.
The mental food supplied by the Watchtower organization does not only encourage the shifting of personal responsibility to a system and its leaders. As we have seen, it also nourishes an illusionary viewpoint of life, stimulating a willingness to believe, despite any evidence to the contrary, that one is enjoying an ideal, virtually problem-free spiritual environment, that one need only follow the organization's directions and all will be well. Many, perhaps most, prefer to believe this. They find it easier to do so. Yet, in the end, the escape they seem to achieve proves more costly than the legitimate suffering avoided. For the illusion can be maintained only by lifelong, constant subjection to indoctrination, and by a constant routine of acts that ease temporarily the sense of guilt otherwise conveyed by failure to meet organizational demands. It requires allowing one's mental faculties to be fettered, channeled, one's compassion and openness of heart to be circumscribed. The long-term losses ultimately prove more costly than the discipline and effort that would have been expended in facing up to reality and dealing with it. So this illusion that he alludes to here of the spiritual paradise, as he said in previous pages, tied to the idea that Old Testament promises are being fulfilled now, and that Zion's light is shining, and that the nations are coming to its light, and that light is Jehovah's Witnesses. All of those appropriations from the Old Testament. I'd like to put up a link to our discussion of Isaiah 33 to 35, where many of their references about the spiritual paradise and the other paradise to come are derived from those texts. So that's the one about the blind leaping. And
the blind seeing.
The blind the blind seeing, the lame leaping like the hart, etc.
Yeah.
So all of those pictures, which are also pleasant and also appealing, that's the reason he wrote the previous chapter, an appealing promise unfulfilled. It can't be fulfilled because it's not about us. It's not about them. It's about Zion, Jerusalem, Israel. So the discussion of that is linked on your screen. And next time, Ray addresses the fact, in his opinion, and I think we share it, the lives of Jehovah's Witnesses and the Christianity of Jehovah's Witnesses, such as it is, are diminished by their involvement in this deception.
Because, like he said in one of the parts, he said they've not grown up as Christians. Yeah. It's when everything is dictated to you, and you never really have to struggle with things or wrestle with thoughts or decisions. It's all laid out for you. You're like a forever infant. Yeah.
So he says, and this is a taste of the next discussion, that we were all diminished in one way or another in our free use of the mental powers God gave us, in our free expression of love, compassion, and mercy, in our being able to speak truth wherever needed and whatever the circumstance. That's next time.